Hello, people. Welcome back to our episodes of Mending, the platform where we talk about issues that have to do with men. How do we live our lives as men? Our last episode, we looked at identity versus hustle. And today, we are going to be looking at our sexuality. So, let's not waste any time. Let's just dive straight into it.
Right.
Kukiriza Joshua, and I'm with
Dennis Mugume.
Yes.
Good to
We are
be
happy to have you here.
Yeah.
Let's get into it. So, what is sexuality? What is this whole thing called sexuality?
Well, as Christian men, we arrive at our definitions from the Bible. And so the first book of the Bible, it defines what it means to be sexual beings or anything to do with sexuality. It says in 126 of the first book of the Bible, Genesis, God said, let us make man in our image after our likeness and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, birds of the heavens. Verse 6 says, then God made man in his own image, male and female, he created them. So that has to do with the fact that you and I are either male or female, and how we leave that out, those differences, that we are made in God's image, male and female alike. So everything that has to do with male and female is our sexuality.
Okay. Yeah. So now, sexuality is male and female.
Yeah.
All right.
Now, our maleness and our femininity. Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So what was God's intention for our sexuality?
Right.
And have we changed from it?
Mm-hmm. Right. So the first idea of it is the fact that for us to bring about the image of God, this imago Dei concept, the fact that God creates us in his image, to express something of that image as men and as women. Mm-hmm. So departure from it means we are biologically men, but we want to live out like women. That's what I mean. We are biologically women who want to live out as men.
As men.
You see. So that is the first sign of the departure, that we're not happy with the bodies God has given us. We want to exchange them for something else. And then the other side of it is, if God made Adam and Eve in the first book of the Bible, and he gives them the right to be fruitful and multiply, sex, okay? And this sex is to be enjoyed in the covenant of marriage, which we are thinking, no, it's not enough for us to have sex in marriage. We could have sex anytime, or whenever we feel like we are ready, or whenever we have sexual feelings. So those are the kinds of departures. Of course, so there is the departure from God's design is things like being, homosexuality and things like that. We have, sex before marriage, fornication, sex outside marriage.
Outside marriage, yeah.
You see, or even sex with yourself in terms of masturbation, pornography. Yeah. So all these are perversions from the design that God had given us in the first place to go with. That we are made male and female alike in his image. We are meant to enjoy our sexuality in the marriage context, or sex in the marriage context, but we depart from that by choosing worldly alternatives that they're offering us. Yeah, so there is that.
So, well, we've talked about God's intention for our sexuality, and I want to understand how does, you created a man, you created a woman, and usually we have these arguments between, it feels like one sex or one gender has it better than the other.
Right.
So you have people trying to, let me just hit the nail on the coffin. For example, feminism.
Right.
So we are trying to have women be men. And then if you're manly, too manly, you become a
toxic man.
Toxic man.
Wow.
So how did we get here? How did we get here? Why don't we appreciate, or why don't we look at the things God has has done and appreciate them and allow them, but why do we keep, trying to get away from it?
Right. So when you read the Bible, God made us in his image and likeness, and male and female alike, he made us. And that's from 1 up to 2 of the first book of the Bible. So, and he said everything he made was very good, right? When then he went for his break. He took a Sabbath break on the 7th day. However, as we keep on reading, we discover something called sin that came in, that Adam and Eve somehow chose to disobey God. In 3, they instead of allowing God to be God, they chose to depart from his ways by disobeying him, by eating the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And that ushered in with it a lot of what we call the effects of the fall. So that now we don't think about God as we ought to think about him in terms of our worship. We don't relate with our fellow man or fellow women around ourselves, our neighbor, the way we ought to. Then even the place he put us in the garden, the creation story is now broken in terms of the environment around us does not enable our thriving. So that's what happened. So you find that men over the years, indeed it's true, some of it is true, that we have used our masculinity to oppress the woman and to keep her subdued versus loving her and cherishing her as part of our flesh. As the Bible says. So there has been a feedback or like a response from that to try and fight for the rights of the women. But again, over the years, that again became overcorrected. And we end up having women who want to be men, literally. And then men who are insecure in their bodies to be men. And so they wanted to become more and more feminine. So feminism as a movement is a bit hard to define because even they themselves can't define it, the ones who advocate for it. But the first, I should say, wave made more sense. That why should a woman not have a right to vote? Like what makes her any different from the men, But as we went on from that, the point made, I think, by these movements was we cannot fight sin with human formulas. The moment you try and fight sin with a human formula, you create more sin, but in a different way. Yeah, that's how we got here. Yeah.
All right, interesting. So let's just change gear.
Yeah.
And let's get to one of the biggest, I feel like one of the biggest challenges that are happening in our times. We could say men go through it most, but I know for a fact that even right now, women are having challenges with this particular subject and the subject of pornography.
Right.
You see, I've forgotten the particular statistics, but I read somewhere that in our lifetime, in the years that we live right now, I've forgotten from which year, but right now where we are, let's say from where we are,
Right.
we see more naked women than our great
Yeah.
ancestors of those days. We have access to a lot of kind of images, and sometimes it could be places where you haven't looked for it. You see, you're walking on the street and someone is dressed in a particular way, and then let's say, sometimes even the apps that we use on the phone,
Right.
sometimes
they're like ads which come in.
yes,
Pop ads. Yeah.
the advertisement, the entertainment world, like it's something. And of course, we shall get into the whole argument of, you see, a woman has to, like, okay, her dressing,
Express herself.
yes,
And, yeah,
it
free.
has. You as a man,
Figure it out.
figure it out. Yeah, we shall get into that later.
Yeah.
But I want to know, is pornography a problem?
Yeah.
Why is it a problem?
Well, there could be many ways to go about it. Pornography is a problem because sin is a problem. And again, sin has a way of, like, many ways of expressing itself out. So it can express itself in terms of a broken sexuality. In other words, we go for pornography instead of actually getting married. It can find a way of, showing up in like addiction, alcohol, substance abuse, and stuff like that. But I think the reason why pornography is a problem is because we are visual creatures as men, and we tend to be drawn by what we see. And if what we see turns on our flesh meaning the fallen human nature that is inclined towards sin in the Bible, that is going to be appealing. Then secondly, generally speaking, in African cultures, sex is not a topic to be discussed on the dining table. We somehow find our own ways into the sex conversation, maybe at school or at work. So there's not this one person who comes and says, look here, this is what sex is. There's this just general assumption that you will find out what sex is as you grow on. So many young men, their first encounter of sex is either a pornographic book or a pornographic magazine or a website. And that's what we know about sex. Sex is equal to pornography. And yet the makers of pornography are playing out for something in you, okay? They are getting all these images and pumping them in your head for the sake of getting it to a particular end. So it's sex which is commercialized, but digitally. So it's a problem because we're in a digital age, you see. And those days you had to work hard to find a pornographic magazine. You had to either talk to a friend of yours, hide it in some corner somewhere, also had it from some uncle of his who came from abroad. But these days, the access to these materials is a finger click away on your phone. So, and then also the fact that it is not like smoking where you smoke and everybody will know that you've been smoking because of how you smell. Pornography is there because it is pervasive. You could find a man who is very well made up but struggling in secret. You could watch porn in the bathroom, after your classrooms. Like it is something that you can be involved with that yet no one will know about until you tell them. Because you stay normal after engaging it. So for all those reasons, and for the culture and for the personal issues, that's why it's a problem. And then lastly, pornography pays. If you look at the traffic, almost 95% of our content, what people enjoy in most parts of Africa is pornographic, you see. And so you find that even if you block like 5 sites, 10 will show up. You block 10, 20 more will show up. You get so it's paying. People pay to watch it, and it's paying because of our broken sexuality, our sinfulness on the inside. Yeah. Lots to think about, isn't it?
Yeah, a lot to think about.
Yeah.
Well, it's usually, pornography goes hand in hand with masturbation. I don't think that one can watch and one can't engage in the other.
Yeah.
So, let's say, as a single man, not yet married, and then you, like I said, you have our sisters staying around us.
Yeah.
I want to find out, do they have, this is mending, but let's talk about the sisters just for today.
Right.
Do they have a responsibility to how they dress in public spaces, or should the responsibility be left to men alone, that no matter how it happens,
somehow they're able
hold your fort? We are not animals. You could reason and say, you see a dog and it sees another dog and they just go. So
go for it.
How do we coexist in such a
So the first bit of it is to think about ourselves as embodied creatures. Again, the image of God is one, male and female alike. So there is no image of God with just the man in it only, or just the woman in it. So something that we have to appreciate is that we are communal beings. We are tied to each other. So what you do affects me, and what I do affects you, because we are sharing an environment. And so much as indeed there is a call for us men to be sober and self-controlled in terms of this area, there's also a call on our sisters to know that, look here, you cannot dress this way and expect to be treated some other way. How you dress communicates the same way. The same way men have a responsibility to watch their words around girls, because sometimes the things we say to the females, what images are to the men are what words are for the woman. So misusing your words or verbally abusing your woman or verbally abusing a female in your environment is the same thing as the female dressing up in a way that is seductive and sensual. Now, of course, I've had some who say, I have dressed my best, honestly. I have tried to cover up, but men still are looking at me, are looking at me lustfully. There, of course, we have to take we have to say that is wrong. You know, we have to create an environment that is safe for both the men and the women. You see, but because we are binary beings, because we are sharing an environment, you can't say, you know, look away if you don't want. No, it is, there is a call on you to be responsible in how you dress, just like there's a call on me to measure my words and know that this is how what I say affects you and how you feel. You see, so there is that. Then secondly is the idea of Christian community. And I think we'll discuss more about that much later. Christians are not just called to believe, they are called to belong. We are called to belong to a body, the Corpus Christi, the body of Christ. There is no Christian who is a singular Christian. We have inherited a common faith, you know, and so that means what you post matters. I have a right to ask you about why you've posted what you've posted because of your testimony as a believer. You know, Paul says, let us judge ourselves so that we will not be judged by those outside. You know, then I would rather take a rebuke from my sister, from my brother in the faith, than from a non-believer. You know what I mean? Because sometimes as Christians, we are so reluctant about our standards that it takes a non-believer to tell us, but you guy, I thought you were a Christian, you guy. Your fellow Christians don't do kind of this kind of thing. You know, yet it would have been easier if it came from someone I know, someone I trust, someone who I'm open to. So I think that dual role that we both have is important.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's good. So, well, how I want to understand why pornography? Why do we keep falling there?
Yeah. So the first bit of it is, it's not a pornography issue as much as it is an issue of what the pornography is pointing you to. Why pornography? Maybe if you ask, what's the primary motivation for you watching? Why are you using? The same question we ask of drugs, of alcohol. It's not an alcohol issue because alcohol in a bottle doesn't affect you.
Yeah, true.
But how do you feel 5, 6, 8 seconds before you engage? What are those triggering factors which lead you to watch it? So most people who are engaged in pornography, you find that they have an abuse background. They were abused sexually as children, and so they grew up into perversion. Some, it was because they were bored. They were doing nothing at home and they had access to the internet and they end up engaging. Some, it's a way of releasing stress, that it's been a long day of work stress, therefore you go and watch pornography and end up masturbating. Some, it's a way of resolving pain, that you can't deal with rejection. That's every time a girl says no to you, you feel like here are girls on the internet who are naked for me. So this one who is physical, that is saying no to me, is no value compared to this one who
This
I can
one.
access.
Yeah.
Remember, pornography gives you access to every kind of girl that you think you want, whether you want a Chinese one, an Asian one, an African one, like they're all there.
Yeah.
And again, it is self-serving, finally, because unlike sex, which is self-donating, sex between a man and a woman in marriage is self-donating. I am not having sex with my wife because I am horny. I'm having sex with her because I want to serve her. This is the way I can. It is other looking.
Yeah.
But pornography is sex for me,
Yeah.
for my pleasure. So it's a problem on all those fronts. And I think people who are struggling need to just take a step back and examine, how do I usually feel before I give in? There is always a pattern.
Yeah.
And there is always a motivation. It can't just arrest you from like a church service and you go and watch pornography. No, it's always a series of events that are interlinked,
Yeah.
that put you in a particular emotional space, and then you get involved. You see, so there is that, and then and then also, why are you looking at the internet without a motivation? You know, when we leave the house in the morning, we are going to school, we are going to work, we are going to meet somebody in town. Nobody leaves their house to just go and
Loiter.
gallivant and loiter in town.
Yeah.
So the same thing with the internet. It has a lot of shops selling things.
Yeah.
You see, why are you on the internet binging? You get it. Binging means there is nothing I'm looking for in particular. Whatever is there, I will watch.
Yeah.
And then the cycle goes on. So being careful what you're doing with your boredom and with your time.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Anyway,
it's
it's one of those subjects. You
Yeah.
know, when someone is speaking about it, you're
Yeah.
like thinking about, and then there's all these other questions. But I think the last question that I would have on this subject is, so we have, let's say you've walked back and you're looking at how you get here. What's the best way to get out of a situation like this? Say, I've heard of stories of people who say, I've tried to quit years, but then I keep falling back. What ideally is the best way to get out of it? And I've heard people who say, you know, it's just a decision that you have to make.
Ah, no.
Just like you wake up and make a decision, then you go take a shower.
Really.
How does it work?
Yeah. So I think the first bit of it is to consider the fact that the Bible talks about sin in 3 ways. So, or even salvation. We have been saved from the punishment of sin. We are being saved from the power of sin. And one day we shall be saved from the presence of sin. In other words, there is an already, there is a present tense, and there is a continuous, future tense.
Yet to be
to
done.
it. So people who talk about struggling with pornography in terms of, I used to struggle, now I stopped, need to be careful, because the Bible says, be careful if you think you stand, lest you fall. That's one. And then the ones who are struggling and are failing need to expand their expectations in terms of how long this will take. Let's appreciate that the fact that it took years for you to learn this habit, to have a love in you for pornography. In the same way, you have to now cultivate a new love for something else, something higher, something superior. And there's a book by Thomas Chalmers. It's called The Expulsive Power of a New Affection. And in that book, his argument is, you do not sort of, fight the addiction to a particular type of food by being hungry. No. Or you, let's say you've been addicted to posho and beans.
Yeah.
It's all you ever eat. It took time for you to train your body to love posho and
Portion beans. Yeah.
So for you to replace that desire, you can't just remove posho and beans. You have to remove and replace.
Yeah.
So for us as believers, we have this thing called worship. That's the first and biggest commandment. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, all your mind, all your strength. the way to fight sin, not just porn, any sin, is to grow in the love of God, because all sin is a departure
From God.
from the love of God. So we do not obey God because we don't trust God. We don't trust God because we don't know God.
Yeah.
We don't know God because we don't love Him. And you can't love what you don't know. So instead of just fighting pornography, grow in your knowledge of who God is. I'm just talking about in terms of reading and praying. I'm talking about everything it takes to know God, from the local church involvement to Bible study and scripture reading to serving others. Because the root of pornography also is selfish. Your life is built around you and your sexual desires. So the way to beat it is to get your life involved in a cause bigger than yourself.
Yeah.
That's what it means to serve one another. Pornography is self-serving. Serving God is self-denying. You get it? So break out from the expectation of thinking this is only going to take a short time and I'll be done with it. No. It is a lifelong journey, but it's a journey that has a departure,
Yeah.
and even an evaluation and an assessment of every day of the time. So I think the best place to start from is to get back to God. Know God. Like, stop at nothing to know God. Ask God, pray, and ask Him for a desire to love Him. Because the more you love Him is the more other loves for other things die out.
Yeah.
You know, versus saying willpower. From now onwards, I'll never.
Yeah.
Then you go back and you're 10 times worse than when you first came. Or things like, I don't know, yoga, meditation. No. Get back to the love of God. Our hearts, I think it was Augustine who says, you've made us for yourself, for God, and our hearts are restless until they find their rest in you. The moment we pursue the love of God, every other love gets its right place.
Yeah.
The moment we forsake the love of God, other loves now compel us and make us their slaves. So it is signing up to be the slave of God, so that you are now free from other things. But once you refuse to be a slave of God, you will be a slave to all other things.
All other things.
And the thing is, those things are unworthy and they are ruthless in their control of you. So Christ says in Matthew 10, I think it says, come unto me, all you who labor and are heavy laden. In other words, everybody has a yoke already.
Yes.
Everybody is carrying something. And then it says, take my yoke upon thee, for my yoke is easy, and burden is light. In other words, the yoke Christ gives you is the easier one. The burden He gives you is light because it's Him carrying it anyway.
Yeah.
You see. So that change of heart loves is very key if you're going to fight well.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right. Good people, you have heard. The only way to this is growing in Christ.
Yeah.
Growing in the love and
The
knowledge of
Jesus
Christ.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you're out there and you're going through these things, I remember our first episodes, we talked about men having a group of support system, men to stand with you. Please do not just watch and beat yourself up.
Right.
Look for men. If you do not know who, talk to God, and I'm sure God will guide you.
To men.
I think even you can reach out to.
Yeah, subscribe and comment and
We can see
love
how
to
we
link up
can
with you.
we can link up and see how we can be helpful, how we can walk this journey of life together. I'm not saying that we are the solution.
No, we are not.
Yes.
Christ is the solution, actually.
Yes. But what I'm saying is we can walk this journey together. Yes. So see you in the next episode. Bye.